out of work, the out of work actor was just reaching for the phone to call his parents and ask for a loan. When the phone rang, and it was his old college roommate, the zookeeper. He said, "Hey, how are things going at the zoo?" His friend said, "You know, things are going really well, but we've got kind of a problem. Our gorilla just passed away, and it's really sad, and we realized that there is not enough funding to replace the gorilla right now." And then I thought of you, my friend, the great actor from college, and I thought, you know, what if we hired you to wear a gorilla suit and just play a gorilla until we work this out? And the actor said, "Yeah, no, that's not what I do." And his friend said, "Okay, well, so how are things going as a professional actor?" And the guy said, yeah, okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning." So he showed up the next day. His friend put him in the gorilla costume and said, "Listen, this job is really easy. You just got to sit there in the corner and just scratch yourself and look depressed. That's the whole thing." And so he did. He put on the suit. He sat there in the corner. He scratched himself. The children came. They banged on the window. And he just sat there. The children, waved and squealed at him. But around noon, he was getting really bored, and the children kept coming. So he gave them a little wave. Oh, and the children applauded. And he got up. He did a little dance, and the children were so happy. And he remembered in that moment what he really loved about being a performer. So he let the children know he's going to do something really special. He picked up his water bowl, and he climbed up the wall to lean over the next cage, the sleeping lion. And he dumped the water bowl on the lion's head, and the lion roared, and the children screamed, and the actor felt so great, except that he slipped, fell, and landed on his back in the lion cage, and suddenly, he's got this giant thing on top of him. He says, "Oh my goodness, don't kill me, I'm just an actor." And then the lion said, "Shh, you're gonna get us both fired." Well, good morning. I'm going to be preaching about animals today, so that's the one that came to mind. Welcome to this place which we make holy by our presence. Bring your brokenness and your personal glow, your early morning aches and your energy, your fears and anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, where the human is celebrated, where compassion is strength. Welcome to this place. Together, we make it a holy place. Please stand if you're able for hymn 361. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, the chalice lighting. How does that get lost in here? Yeah, it's true. Please join me for the words of the chalice lighting, which are printed inside of your leaflet. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Now please stand if you're able for hymn 361.
Joyful day, and to rejoice and come in.
536 in the back of the hymnal. Number 536. Number 536, I will read the sections in standard type, and please join me for the sections in italics. Every morning the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black clouds on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries with it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning. Whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray. This is a very special service in the Unitarian year. This is the service where we celebrate water. And when we think about those water sources, those bodies of water that are important to us, whether it is an ocean or whether it is a bird feeder in your backyard, or if it's your kitchen sink, or if it is the well that provided water to the house that you spent your childhood in. And something that's really special about doing this service here is that I don't expect you to show up with water from the tap, that you used to like fill your bathtub from when you were a kid. We don't necessarily have water samples with us. But I invite you to take a moment and think about some special water source that has been meaningful to you. And then you're welcome to come up and say a few words about it. And pour some water from this pitcher into this shared urn. It's going to represent the combination of our sacred water sources. And of course, if you did bring a water sample, you are most welcome to use that. Since it's early September, I just got back from. No, you know what? I'm gonna do a different one. Because I was going to say I just got back from camping with my kids, and I thought, I feel like I did that last year. So instead, we're going to do another one. There was a swimming pool in Pennsylvania that we went to this summer where I taught my son how to dive. And it was very special because there was nobody that we knew, and he was very self-conscious, and he came out, by the end of it, the whole front of his body was just red from just a lot. He belly flopped a lot into that water, but he did in the end execute one dive, and he was happy about that. So I'm going to celebrate that body of water today. Check. Okay, good. And this is on, so you're welcome to think and share about a special body of water.
I brought water in an ice cream container. This water comes from the sky. I got it out of the rain gauge this morning, and I had an inch of rain overnight. Water means a lot to me because I love to garden, and without water, I wouldn't have my garden.
Well, Betsy and I went to Chautauqua this summer, as we often do, and for a week. And the topic this week, the week that we went, was water. And so I thought, wow, you know, we heard some powerful speakers, a couple of dozen probably, most of them speaking directly on the topic of water. What did we learn that I could share with you today? And so I whispered to Betsy, what did we learn at Chautauqua about water that we can share? And we couldn't figure out anything we'd heard. So we went there, we spent a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of time, and had a lot of enjoyment, but I can't bring you anything particular on water, even though that was the topic.
Hi, good morning. My name is Meg. Not to be outdone, Pellegrino water. Metaphorically, this is water from Cayuga Lake. I was raised in Ithaca, New York, where Cayuga Lake is one of the Finger Lakes that the Native Americans had, I don't know how, but envisioned 5 fingers coming down on the earth and creating the lakes. If I could name them all, I'd be a happy woman. I'm happy anyway. Water also, as a biologist, one thing I remember is we are 70% or more water, which is amazing to me. And my father-in-law reminded me that in New York State, we're very fortunate to have as much clean water source that we do. I mean, I have no sense of gratitude for that because I haven't lived in a place, I mean, I'm part Middle Eastern, so I have that side of me that appreciates water more than probably a lot of things, but with that, I'm done. Thanks.
So a few moments ago, I took a first sip out of this water, and I was reflecting upon the water ceremony last night when I had a water wake-up call at about 3 in the morning. And I realized that not all water in bottles is created equal. 2 years ago, I had a great big argument with the sun, and the sun won. So now I have to buy water in great big bottles with electrolytes. This doesn't have electrolytes, but it does quench the thirst. Then I had another thought. I've been living here now for 4 years, and I have not had a bath in 4 years. I'll let you ponder that. Oh, and this is the first time, I mean, I always had something to present, but I always forgot to bring water. So this is the first time I put some water in there.
Good morning, I'm Linda. And first, this bottle is a Hoover's Dairy milk bottle. I have very fond memories in childhood of Jean or Lloyd Hoover bringing our glass bottles of milk and taking the empties back with him. And the water inside comes from the Niagara River. It's been filtered and purified, but it's the same source of water that came through my taps when I was growing up in Ransomville and Sanborn, and then LaSalle, and as an adult, my apartments in DeVoe and LaSalle, and my new recent apartment here in the city again. So this water links some of my best childhood memories and a few of my worst across my life to the moments I'm living now.
I wasn't bringing any water because I wasn't aware of what the homework before was, but all my 78 years have been spent next to the two biggest bodies of water in the world. The freshwater element is the Great Lakes Niagara River connection, which is tied with the Amazon for the biggest flows of fresh water in the world. And the other time was when I lived in California. I was within a short bus ride of being to the Pacific Ocean shore, which is the largest saltwater body in the world. And I'd spend a lot of time just sitting on beaches and just daydreaming. And similar times when I go to Goat Island or the state park here, it's a similar pursuit. But it's very important to realize that we can't live without this stuff. I've said this before, but H2O, as you know, is in gas, liquid, and solid. We're talking about the liquid state mostly, but that gas form, humidity, clouds, this liquid was the water we're talking about, and the frozen stuff, ice, snow, glaciers, it's all H2O. We can't live without it. So this is a great theme for me because, like I say, my entire life has been next to these massive bodies of H2O that are so readily accessible, and I always mean to make sure I take advantage of that pursuit and blessing to be next to them.
Morning. I didn't bring water because I wasn't even aware of this, but I mean, there's nothing I can say about water because it's like everything. You know, I love it, and there's so many special water places. Like this summer, we were camping a lot. We went to Ithaca and we camped down there, and I went to a lake up in Canada, Killarney, with my girlfriend and camped out there. And one day we spent the whole day on rafts out in the lake and like got into there's like a channel, and she got caught and she started floating away, and like she's screaming and paddling and like calling me for help, and I'm like, I can't help you because I just went through all this work to get out. And it was like a big thing. But yeah, we went swimming a lot this summer and camping a lot and swimming a lot. But my favorite water place, I think, I thought of like, the creek near my house in Ransville where I grew up. But then I thought, Goat Island, Three Sisters Island, sitting on, well, now it's all fenced off, but if you walk out to the third island and there's that one big rock. And since my like teenage years, I've been sitting out on that third rock, like when I just need some peace, and that's like my happy place. So wherever I am, like even when I lived in the Himalayas, fresh water is like the biggest source in Nepal. But even I remember being in Nepal, like going through labor, and it's like I'm really hot and it's really terrible, and like go to your happy place. Like in my mind, I went to Goat Island. Like that's my happy place. That third rock off the end of Goat Island, just sitting there and watching the rapids. noise, I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
This summer, I was lucky enough to go to Long Beach, California for a conference for work. And I was lucky that was on my wedding anniversary as well. And the one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to take off my shoes and walk in the ocean. And I got to walk in the Pacific Ocean. My husband just took pictures of me and stared at me, but I just wanted to step in the water.
Well, I want to thank those of you who've shared today. And for those of us who've got some water source in mind that we can't quite put the words together, I'll put one more in here. And this jar, this is our kind of water service receptacle jar that has been used in this church since 1996, so back into the 20th century. And so the water that we have spoken about and shared and poured today, we'll put some of that into the jar, and that will continue to be a part of this congregation into the future. And I was once at a water service where they didn't announce that quite clearly, and somebody was pouring their thing in and then said, like, but this is actually clear Mountain Dew. And I thought, well, you're gonna need a new service jar after that. Or else you're gonna have some kind of science experiment going on in your water ceremonies. Peter, would you like to lead us in sharing joys and concerns?
For a church that pretends not to celebrate rituals and that sort of thing too much, we manage to do a lot of them, and this is one of them that we do. But it's a good ritual if that's what it is. Every worship service, we take a few minutes of time where everyone is encouraged, if they choose, to share some special personal high or low with the others that are here today or that day. And so that's what we're doing right now. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to take a moment and quietly contemplate, meditate, and pray, even if that's what you insist on doing. And see if you've got something you'd like to share as a personal high or a personal low. Sharing them seems to reinforce them for some reason. So I encourage you to do that. Take that time right now. And so now, if you have decided on a particular joy or sorrow that you'd like to share with the rest of the congregation, this is the time to come forth and do it. Please speak into the microphone, and if you choose, you are invited to light a candle.
Okay. Well, I can't say if this is a joy or a tribulation. It's a combination. Last weekend, I was asked to speak at my brother-in-law's memorial service, and it went quite well. I was able to bring, of course, gratitude into it, and also some really fond memories of Ben. So for that, I'm grateful. Thanks.
Does anyone else have a personal high or low that they'd like to share with the congregation this morning?
I ask this every time. Is it this into here or this into there?
Small one into the large one.
It was Wednesday. I suddenly thought, I have not seen any of Richard Harriet's ramblings on Facebook. So I went into his page only to discover that he had passed away on July 5th. He was a friend of mine back in music school, and I always threatened that I was going to throw him into the falls because at 16 years old, I thought that he should not have had the opportunity to play Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto with the Toronto Symphony under the direction of Sir Andrew Davis. So there are many people in Toronto and thereabouts that are sorely going to miss this character. There's much I could say about all of the happenings around the Duke of York, which is the typical British pub up in Canada in Old Yorkville, which is not the traditional Old Yorkville that you may have remembered back in the 60s. It is now sort of posh. And I don't know why I'm rambling, but yeah, and I'm not going to cry either.
Francie Coleman on Zoom wanted to share.
Yeah, just left over from the water. Just here's to Niagara Falls, where I spent my youth, and to the Pacific Ocean, where I live now. And I also like to shout out to my grandson, Justin, Sabrina's son, who ran a 5K run with Sabrina for the Gilda Radner run yesterday and got a medal. Yay! That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Yesterday, I had a very shocking and unexpected low. The woman who's been taking me to get my groceries for the last 6 months very suddenly, very abruptly, said that I should find someone new to help me, and then said something I won't repeat that basically means the reason she's stopped helping me is because I'm autistic. So Because I'm autistic. Yes. So that was very hurtful, and it took pretty much the rest of the day, and as you can possibly tell by my voice, not completely yet, to get over that. So I wanted to share that because a burden shared is a burden lifted.
Anyone else? Well, I'll light one more for some unspoken ones that may be out there. The offertory will now be collected.
Spirit of love, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to
About a decade ago, Noah's Ark landed at my house. It was a Fisher-Price Little People play set. It had already been cherished by someone's kids, but it was remarkably well made. As a matter of fact, when the human race has sunk into the rising seas, I believe that this toy will still be in pretty good shape. Apparently, the set was originally Noah and his bride with 2 zebras, 2 hippos, each with a little bird standing on its ear, a pair of bears, giraffes, toucans, and leopards. But the used set that we received had interbred with some other play sets. So there were also various other animals, not all of which came 2 by 2. I think there was an alligator, a lion, various other castaways. And these storm-tossed refugee creatures disembarked on our house, and they went exploring. And they managed to colonize every room. Plus, the plastic boat had detachable parts which drifted into various areas from the basement to the attic. Now, every so often, we would gather them all up for a reunion party so that one of our kids could play with the set, but then they would quickly disperse again. They filled and subdued the promised land of our house, and apparently they were fruitful and multiplied. When we finally rounded them up for the last time, there were somehow 3 zebras. Well, last year, we finally packed them back into the boat so they could voyage into someone else's house and populate it. But rounding up the pieces of this toy playset, where all of the people and animals, they look so happy, there's something odd about it because the flood is the most shocking horror story of the Bible. And the Bible has got some real horror stories in it. Now, this makes a sort of sense since it comes from an old Sumerian tale about religious tax evasion. The Mesopotamian gods had created humans as farmers to feed them, and their diet consisted mostly of beer. The Mesopotamian gods were raging alcoholics. And when the farmers went on strike, the gods punished them with this apocalyptic flood. Not a clear blue water flood. They plunged all of creation back into the primordial, dark, swampy chaos. But one of the gods warned a man that he should pack his family, livestock, and supplies onto a boat, weather the storm, and then quickly remind the gods why humanity was made in the first place by setting some bread on fire. The story circulated for millennia around the ancient Near East. The man in the story was variously called Ziusudra, Atrahasis, Utnapishtim. There were various versions of this story floating around, and the priesthood used it to terrorize peasants into giving food and beer to the temples, essentially paying the priests themselves. The story served its purpose so well that the Israelite priesthood adopted it and produced two versions of their own. And the biblical editors, unable to decide which story was better, instead of putting them back to back, they used both in the book of Genesis, but they alternated lines between the two of them. So everything in the biblical Noah's Ark story happens twice in a row, and you can get kind of seasick while reading it. The two versions in the Bible have minor variations. For example, the command that all creatures be gathered 2 by 2 is immediately followed by the command to rescue 14 specimens of each quote-unquote clean creature and 2 of each quote-unquote unclean creature. And wow, the idea that God should create creatures that God's self would then label unclean is a bit biblically horrific. What makes the biblical flood story even more horrifying than the old Mesopotamian versions is that the wickedness of man is unspecified. It's never made clear what people were doing wrong precisely that made God so angry. Now, once the ark lands, Noah sacrifices some animals and God is satisfied, which implies the same message, that the Godfather wants his cut or else something really bad might happen to you. Noah himself is an ambiguous character. He does build this thing according to the Lord's specifications, which turn out are not the specifications for a boat. They are just the instructions to build a giant wooden box. The Noah's Ark, as described in the Bible, is like a big wooden shoebox. The Hebrew word ark means box. And as for the playset we had, the box that it originally came in was more biblically accurate than like the plastic boat-shaped thing inside. And Noah worked on this thing, but didn't tell anyone what was going to happen. Now, in the Quran, the Noah story is told, and in it he spends years slowly building the ark so that he has time to warn everyone in town to repent, but the people refuse to listen. In the Bible, he does not. He just labors in this grim silence. In his defense, the Bible tells us that he was 600 years old at the time, which is kind of a crotchety age when trying to give advice to young whippersnappers seems kind of pointless and exhausting. whatever it was that humans did or didn't do to deserve the flood, the animals had to pay for it too. In Genesis chapter 7, we read, "And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle, of beast, of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life. All that was in the dry land died." And when this indignity was done to the poor animals, the surviving beasts had to face something even worse. When the ark landed, the Lord decreed open season for hunting, saying, "Now every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you." This is the first biblical reference to humans eating animal meat. This is where it becomes pretty important whether God told Noah to save only 2 or 14 of the ones that were edible. And Noah, when all of this was done and the ark was landed and everyone was safe, the Bible tells us that he planted the first vineyard, made wine, got drunk, passed out naked, suffered the first hangover. Rabbinic legends tell us that Satan himself assisted in this venture. Noah and Satan decided to go into the wine business together. And so before Noah started planting, Satan sacrificed 4 animals on the spot: a lamb, a lion, a pig, and a monkey. And thus it was determined that the first cup of wine should make a person docile as a lamb, the second makes him loud as a lion, the third renders him filthy as a pig, and finally the fourth makes him ridiculous as a monkey. Now, this episode is not in the Bible. This is a bit of rabbinic humor, dark humor, with some cruelty to animals, especially since the pig, lion, and monkey are all considered unclean animals, so Noah had only saved 2 of them. Our modern version of Noah's Ark is the local zoo. As the tide of human housing and landfills spreads and rises, flooding natural habitats with tourists and suburbs, we attempt to rescue animal species by putting productive pairs in boxes. But the animals don't get this for free. They must earn their keep as entertainers, naked entertainers, which is ironic since we bring our children to point at pangolins on the catwalk, wolf whistling like construction workers to get their attention. And then eventually, someone has to come along and say, Buffalo, New York is not a natural habitat for elephants, which is a fact. But it's an antsy fact that inches us closer to the uncomfortable conclusion that the Buffalo Zoo is also not a natural habitat for buffalo, by which I mean bison. And somewhere in the dark, factual haze lurks the inevitable logical conclusion: Buffalo, New York is also not a natural habitat for Buffalonians, by which I mean alcoholics. And no amount of Labatt Blue will ever change that, even if you print Zubaz on the cans. As a matter of fact, and don't shoot the messenger for this one, Labatt Blue also doesn't keep humans warm. It only makes us less aware of the cold, which is nonetheless working away at our bodies. So getting the zoo elephants drunk won't fix anything. And someone finally says, well, if buffalo's not a natural habitat for elephants, we will have to relocate them, because that's easier than getting an elephant into a hoodie and some sensible winter pants, by which I mean Zubaz. I'm just using elephants as an example. The Buffalo Zoo elephants were relocated 6 years ago to New Orleans, where they star in a permanent installation production of A Streetcar Named Desire. A natural choice because the call of the adult male elephant can only be translated into human speech as the cryptic word, Stella. That may sound like a joke at first, but it's a biological fact. The lion, the chimpanzee, about 60% of the sounds of the jungle are just animals shouting Stella. It means something like, baby, come back, I can change. But you know they can't. because nature is nurture. Behavior is biological. When I hear that animals are unhappy at the zoo, I definitely sympathize, since I also live in an artificial primate habitat. A monkey house that nature never intended. We call it the grass menagerie. But like the zoo animals, I can't leave the ark because I was raised there. I am an entertainer, and I don't know how to get my food any other way. Not just an entertainer in the sense that I'm struggling to entertain you right now, but every job I've ever had required some form of clapping like a seal and balancing some metaphorical ball on my nose in the hope of someone giving me a fish. So the zoo animals are stuck on Noah's Ark, and so am I. There are numerous indigenous American flood stories, but when I think about an indigenous American story to compare with the biblical flood, the one that comes to mind first is actually sort of the opposite, a deluge in reverse. Among the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous peoples of Western New York, the beginning of the world was all water and darkness, no dry land. And the swirling birds looked up and they saw something mysterious, a featherless biped, what we would call a person, falling toward the earth. Now, the story doesn't tell us whether she was like flapping her arms while she was falling, but nothing could slow her down. She was accelerated toward the center of this watery earth. And the birds may have also noticed that she had this big egg-like lump in her belly because she was pregnant. So the birds, a bunch of loons, debated and consulted with each other, and they took a vote about what to do. And because they're Native American birds, they couldn't just vote once and choose by majority. They had to keep voting and debating and voting until they reached a consensus. And they decided to help this creature, not just by handing her an olive branch, which doesn't help at all when you're in free fall, but by flying in a circular formation, each with a wing at the center, and thus they cooperatively formed a sort of basket, or loony bin, to slow this woman's fall. And then a friendly turtle surfaced and let the woman stand on her shell. Some animals swam up to see what the commotion was, and a couple of them dove down to see if there was anything under the water, and a muskrat brought up some dirt, which spread until the North American continent, or Turtle Island, was formed. The animals had rescued not just one person, but the mother whose offspring would start the human race. And this story is their story. It's not a tale of human heroes rescuing the animals from manic depressive deities with productive destructive mood swings. The loons in this story are not messengers, they are politicians who must weigh out the consequences of fostering a displaced refugee who, in this story, is totally helpless entering this environment. And the muskrat who dives down heroically apparently drowns in the attempt. They have to wait until it floats back up and pick this dirt from its claws. Not to mention that the turtle is stuck there, a living ark, still bearing the animals above the water thousands of years later. The biblical story of the flood, in my head, I still call it the story of Noah's Ark. I must have heard that in Sunday school at some point. But really, it should be called the story of God's Ark, since the boat was God's idea. An idea about how to deal with the flood, which was also God's idea. An idea about how to deal with the wickedness of the world, which was also God's idea. And in that story, the most precious cargo is the seed population of the human race, which all descend from one guy. Noah, the character, is not good or bad. He does what he's told. Actually, he never speaks in the entire story until the flood is past and he's hung over and curses his grandson. Not his son, who saw his nakedness, but his son's kid. Maybe his vision wasn't so good. He was 600 years old. Or maybe it's because all the human survivors of the ark were relatives and all looked sort of the same. That's not how biological survival works. Animals in pairs of 14s or 9 related humans in a boat. That's not a viable population. The biblical story of the flood does not produce a biologically viable community or a socially viable community. There's one patriarch, and he gets drunk and curses 1/3 of the people. Nobody can argue. It takes more than a pair to make a family. It takes more than a family to make a community or a congregation. And doing our part to help save these fragile species, including ours, on this fragile planet, it can't just be done 2 by 2. Thank you. Thank you. Please stand if you are able for hymn 100, Peace Like a River.
I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul. I got
You know what? I have no idea. What did they do here? Okay, I found it. Sorry, it was written funny.
I got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I got love like an
Did I hit all the verses? I couldn't see. There's. Okay. It's kind of an.
I think for some of us, and I've got pain marks down to what that was supposed to do.
Oh, there. Okay.
All right.
Repeat.
Do we? So I still think, we'll work on that. We'll get better with that. Do we have any announcements today?
Next Saturday, we're going to have the board meeting at 10 a.m. in the Founders Room. And today, we're going to be having hamburgers and hot dogs, and we have ice cream left over from last week, so we'll have a nice coffee hour.
Also on Saturday, we start a new series that we've done a couple of years now for tour guide training in Niagara Falls. We haven't had a whole lot of people who who are anxious to do tours. But we have more people, fortunately, who just want to hear about the history. We have wonderful speakers. First speaker is Sarah Capon, head of the Niagara Falls National Heritage Area and all the heritage areas in the entire country. She's a wonderful speaker. Next is Jason Buckley, who talks about some of the history of the early part of Niagara Falls. We have Tom Yachts, who you've heard before, who's going to tell us about power and industry. And at the very end, we're going to hear from Bernice Radel, who is the executive director at Preservation Buffalo Niagara, and she will be talking about historic preservation. You are welcome to come if you would like to. It's a Saturday morning from 9 to noon. And if you just want to come to hear one of the sessions or so, you can do that. If you want to do the actual class, you have to pay $100. But other than that, we would invite you to stop in if you'd like to. It'll be right here, downstairs, because you're going to be meeting upstairs. Okay. If anybody wants any more information, just ask me. Thank you. Anybody else?
And I'm excited to announce the beginning of our adult education for this year. And I know that today is an important football game, I guess. So show of hands. How many of us are thinking about staying for adult education today? Good. Okay. All right. And today our topic is going to be football, particularly Buffalo Bills fandom and how that is like a religion. So we can kind of celebrate the season opener with or the home opener, whatever it is, with that. Yes. Oh, today? Oh, well, that's great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, good. Maybe I can get the kids to watch some Star Trek with me this evening. Together we have sanctified this space. If you have found strength and comfort here, share some out there. Remember that you are blessed and you are a blessing and you are not alone. Please join me for the word of extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Reminded me why I ended up rambling. The whole point of telling the story about the Duke of York, and then the expansive version would be for somewhere else. Richard's favorite saying was, "It's beer o'clock," and often it would be vodka o'clock. And the odd thing is, you mentioned the fact that you are autistic. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Richard was, is it Asperger's? Yeah, and both of his sons are autistic. Anyway, just sharing. My Uncle Terwilliger waltzes with bears. It's a terrible, terrible state of affairs. And I'm not gonna stop it, my uncle declares. It keeps my mind off of my worries and cares.
I've polar bears, honey bears, grizzly bears too. And there's nothing at all our family can do to stop my poor uncle from wah 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 waltzing with bears.
Lost the chord there.